I'm Larry Schmeidler. I'm the editor of Extra Extra, an internet newspaper 24/7. It serves Framingham and all our friends throughout the state. Today we have with us two locals who are very much involved in Framingham, and on my far left is Professor Sanchez, retired professor of economics, and my immediate left is Enzo Rotatori, a retired businessman. And I'm going to step in and make it relevant by asking each of you to describe yourself, your background, and what have you been doing in terms of politics and service to Framingham. Enzo, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Larry. My name is Enzo Rotatori. I've lived in Framingham 45 years. I've been retired 13 years and became interested in town politics upon retirement. 10 years ago, myself and two other people formed the Framingham Taxpayers Association because we were looking for some group that had some responsibility directing to the town, fiscal responsibility. And this group has been dormant for some periods of time and very active at other periods of time. Nick?
Okay, my name is Nick Sanchez, and I have lived in Framingham for 37 years. My involvement in Framingham arose because both of our daughters went to the Framingham public schools throughout their education, and so I wanted to make sure that the schools were providing, good education. So I got involved in the school committee, and I served for a period of 3 years. Subsequently, I served in town meeting for 1 year. I served in the finance committee for 2 years, and I also served throughout the period of time of the pilot committee, which is payment in lieu of taxes. My wife and I live here in Framingham, and I am retired. I have been retired now for the last 2 years.
Thank you. Just as background, before we step into our first question, everybody out there knows when I say tax rates are going up. The dollar is going down, gold is in a free fall and bouncing up and down like a seesaw. As Casey Stengel, the famous baseball manager, said, does anybody know how to play this game? So with that, we'll step into the burning question that is going to be going around Framingham. The school committee has approved a $102 million budget, and it's been rather recent. I would like to turn this over to Enzo for the first reply. Do you consider this to be an acceptable figure?
I have to say no.
Why so?
In May 20th, 2008, as a town meeting member, I sponsored a resolution that stated that the school department needed to present to town meeting the school budget in a different format. At that time, the school budget book said total school budget, and there was a number on it, and that really isn't a total school budget. Many charges, including school teacher health insurance and retirement benefits and a dozen other charges, never went into the school budget. They always went into the town side budget. As an example, in 2008, the school budget was about $83 million. The actual cost of operating the schools was $136 million. In 2011, the actual school budget was about $90 million, and the real cost of operating the schools was $149 million. That's a $59 spread. This budget of $102 million, I am estimating that the real cost of operating the schools will be between $160 and $170 million. I would be very pleased that sometime in the near future that the school department, school committee, and the town manager present to the town meeting members, to the public, and to the press what the real cost of operating the schools is.
Well, Nick, you're an economist, and you've been on the school board. How do you take George's analysis, rather Enzo's analysis?
Well, I think he's correct. However, I would like to look at the school budget not from the point of view of finances, but I would like to look at the school budget from the point of view of education. In other words, one of the things that we have seen over the past few years is that the state has downgraded the performance of our schools. So here we keep putting more and more money into the system, and yet the performance keeps going down. Now, I honestly believe that the problem that we face as a society goes deeper than just spending more money. It refers to the idea that people think that if you have a credential, then you're going to do a good job. And you see, what I would like to see is not, credentials have to be taken into account in the hiring process. There is no doubt about that. But what we really need to do is we need to take a look at performance. And, recently I gave a presentation and someone said, yes, but, all of the, or almost all of the teachers in the Worcester school system, have master's degrees. Well, now the Worcester school system has been downgraded to a level 4. I mean, so if the teachers are so good, how come that the performance, of the schools has been measured so poorly? And I mean, in Framingham now, we are considered at a level 3, whereas before we were at a level 2. So I honestly don't think that you solve problems by throwing more and more money into the system. Actually, what you have to do is you have to have a way of measuring performance. And therefore, the school committee should go to town meeting and say, this is the way we're going to measure the performance of the teachers.
Okay.
And then we pay the teachers according to performance, not according to the credentials of years that they have served or anything like that.
Well, I have a question as a former alumni president. I was the president of the University of Michigan's Alumni Association in New England, and we take a hard look at the schools. And when I hear that you just say level 3, well, that's the forthcoming population of Framingham High School. Now I want to ask Enzo a question, since you raised the figures, we can sort of interweave this. Do you feel the Framingham school system is operating efficiently, or is that a fair question?
Well, based upon the ratings, and I'd like to clarify, the 1 rating would be the best rating for a school, and the 5 rating would be a total failure. So Worcester is operating at some 4 level,
4.
and I know we had at one point at least 3 schools in Framingham at a 3 level. That's nothing to blow your horn about. Several weeks ago, out of curiosity, I wanted to find out the efficiency of the education system in Framingham, in the United States. And I went on Google, my favorite search engine. And the question I asked it is, where does the United States rank in industrialized nations of the world regarding efficiency of the school system, public school system? And I was shocked to find on the site that I read that we were 17th. There are 16 other countries ahead of us. Part of the response and evaluation of that website also said the worst thing you can do is throw money after an inefficient system. And that is one of the problems. I like your idea of, and I come from a business background, and I get paid by performance.
Exactly.
If I didn't perform, I didn't get it.
Right.
Professor, what do you say?
Just call me Nick, please.
Okay.
Well, what I say is that, people say if we spend more money on the schools, we're going to increase our investment in education. But the funny thing is that we have been increasing tremendously the expenditures on the schools, and yet, what we get is, in my opinion, poorer performance. Therefore, again, the problem is not throwing money at a system. The problem is defining and evaluating the performance of the system, and that has not been done. And until that is done, we will continue to just waste money.
Well, you hear the argument at town meeting. Are you taking something away from our children? Do you dislike children? You've heard this often enough at town meeting. Enzo, how do you answer that?
being a former town meeting member.
And a father.
And a father of 7 children, all went to public schools in Framingham. And I'm very disturbed how the school budget is handled at town meeting. There are 2 budget books that the town meeting members get, as you know. The one representing the town side can be evaluated line by line. Every one of those line item budgets can be challenged and questioned, every one. On the other hand, the school budget has 1 line and 1 vote, yes or no. That is so illogical. You cannot challenge, and I've been evaluating the school budgets for quite a period of time, and way back, my favorite one was when we had 29 school administrators, salaries and benefits over $3 million, and no one could ever tell me and identify who the 29 were. And then it went to 27, and went to 25, went to 23, and went to 21. And I now wonder, those 8 missing administrators, at the last time I looked, who's doing their job? What was it? And I never have any answers, but it's too sad to say that the town meeting members at town meeting cannot say, why are you doing this? Why are you paying, at one time, teachers' aides over $150 a day? Nice salary. I have 2 kids who teach, by the way. Nice salary. And there are no answers available because you can't question. There is no questioning. It's yes or no. Do you want to take it away from the kids, or do you want to give it to the children? They deserve it. And I don't think the town meeting members have the courage to say no. You just will not stand up there and say, no, I refuse to accept this school budget. Because the school department would have to come back with another number without any more detail, because they don't have to give you any detail.
Yeah, and not only they don't give enough detail, but also they do not give a historical background for the expenditures. In other words, like, people, vote, but they do not know, well, how many children were being served 5 years ago, how many children were served 10 years ago, how much were we spending 5 years ago in real terms.
Yeah.
You can make corrections for inflation, how much we were spending 10 years ago. And again, what is the outcome? What has been the outcome of those expenditures? And we do not get the performance at any level.
Let's talk about that for 1 second. We're on this topic quite a bit, but it's a hot one. As you know, we do have a mutual friend, his name is Sam Blumenfeld, who is very, very critical of what he called the problems that were instituted by one John Dewey. And I'm ashamed to say, or should I say, he was a member of the Michigan faculty in the late 1890s, before he went on to the University of Chicago. And Sam said, part of the problem is the curriculum, the way children are taught to read, which is critical for the whole process. And he favors intensive phonics. How do you feel our teachers are performing in terms of getting these kids just to learn how to read properly so they can advance to higher education?
Well, my own viewpoint is slightly different from yours in the following sense. I do think that in terms of reading performance, the schools are doing at least an adequate, if not a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that I have is more with mathematics and science. I mean, the performance in those 2 fields is dismal. And of course, when it comes to history, I mean, it's even worse. I mean, and not just in the educational system in Framingham, but I mean in the educational system, throughout the United States. People, younger people, do not know the history of the United States, and I mean that is shameful.
I'd say that's correct.
I'd like to comment also.
Okay.
At one time during my analysis of the school systems, I found that in 1980, public schools in Framingham had an enrollment of 10,578 students. And if you go back historically, you're not going to see that number even approached. We've been in the low 8,000 category right now. And I looked at the number of employees in the school system when we had the 10,578 and the number of employees that we have now. And even though 1980 was a long time ago, there is a number that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because we have more people